Welcome, everybody.
Hey, hey. Good boy, Tucker.
Work smarter where you want.
This is learning at its most fun.
Cleaning up bad history. It happens to us all. I know as a training team, we preach the importance of this, but we have been guilty of this nonstop as well. So internally, whether it's in our own CRM or through one of our sample databases, we run into these problems as well. So let's jump into all of the things that you want to make sure that you run through in order to make sure that your data is in good working order. That is always the goal. We promise kind of the functionality of the system, but we do not promise the functionality or the integrity of your data. So your data needs to be in good working order in order for kind of the machine to do its thing. So first thing I like to start off with is by going to reports on the left, going down to contact reports and choosing contacts by duplicate names. This is a nice softball one where you can clean up duplicates. This is going to take everyone who's repeated in your system and put them in one list for you. So duplicates can happen. You just want to make sure that you clean this up so that way you're not wasting time in the moment saying, which one has the number I need? Which one do I add the note to? Instead, there will be one record for every person. So if you know Sarah Jones is one person, but she's in here twice, check off the boxes next to her name, choose combine, and go ahead and turn those two records into one. It will ask you to select one as a primary record that the other one will combine into. You want to think of those things that contact can only have one of, like date of birth or social security number. If there's two date of births on these records, we're not going to take the average of the two and give you a new date of birth. Instead, we'll ask you to select one as the primary record that the other one will combine into. So nice softball one there and cleaning up history. You know, do this report annually, biannually, quarterly, just to make sure you're not wasting time later with contacts that are duplicated. And if you find that you accidentally combine somebody, or maybe you didn't know about that combined feature and you just went ham and just started deleting people that you know are duplicates or you know that you don't need, and you want to bring them back, no worries at all. You can always go to contacts on the left-hand side and choose the recycle bin tab here at the top. And this is going to take everyone that was combined or deleted and put them into one list. So if you accidentally combined somebody, you accidentally deleted them, you can restore them here either individually or in bulk. Otherwise, we'll kind of hit different topics here. The first thing we'll cover is notes and cleaning up history. So with notes, we have to remember that when we click on the plus sign and choose to add in a note, you are going to have the drop-down menu here for category. And if you might be having the opposite problem here, where a lot of offices just have this set to general information and never change it. But what we're talking about today is maybe you have some in here that are just nonsense. They're never used. You don't want people to use them. You want to go ahead and clean them up. Like this one has Z business alternative. You know, if we don't need that in there, we can go ahead and go click on our name, click on manage your account, click on manage database lists, and then go over to the activity and note categories to go ahead and remove it. So if we want to go down to the letter Z to get rid of that one, we can go ahead and delete it there and choose what it would move to. So maybe we just want it to be general wealth management instead. We could go ahead and put it there and delete that guy so no one else is able to use it. So now when we click on the plus sign, choose to add in a note, that option isn't even going to be available to create that bad data. Otherwise, we can go ahead and show that, if we want to pull up notes, we can do that using, a different category. So if we go to reports on the left, we can go down to note reports. This is one of my favorite reports just because it will show all of that history. So here we can go ahead and choose the note by contact report. And what we're demonstrating here is kind of some investigation, because maybe you want to clean up more of those categories. You're like, you know what, we have like 90 in there. I want to cut it down to 30. You can go ahead and do some investigating now with this report. You can change that start date because you want to look at the past. So maybe you want to look at the past 10 years of notes. You can change that. And then you could just go through the categories. You can go through and say, you know what? I have this category in here, but I haven't really seen it be used. And I just want to verify that, my thought is correct. And then you can go ahead and investigate before you delete it. So maybe we have one in here that we saw earlier that we didn't think really is used often, like three-way conversation. I can choose that, apply that filter. It's bringing me back all of the notes for the past 10 years that have three-way conversation. And exactly correct, there is not any. So, this we could strongly consider deleting as well. So we could go back to our name, go back to manage your account, go back to manage database lists, activity and note categories, and delete that three-way conversation. So you can do some investigating before you kind of pull the plug. Maybe we just want to move this to just a regular phone call. We can go ahead and do that here. All right, next thing we want to do is look at activities. So one of my favorite things to do to teach people is to clean up past due activities. And like I said, we're preaching the importance of good, clean data, but I'm going to show you right now that we're extremely guilty of having bad data in here as well. So right now I'm on the today page, and underneath the search contacts bar, there's a tab that says activities. If you click on that tab that says activities, you can change the filter dates to show past due. You can also, while you're on the today page, just click this past due button, completely up to you. But this is going to take you to all of your past due activities. Now, I have 31 past due activities. If we want to get even scarier, we can move it from me to everyone. And that list is going to, triple, quadruple, just depends on your data. So I changed it to everyone, and it jumped up to 162 past due activities. This is such bad data, you guys. I can't even emphasize it enough how bad of this data this is and how desperate we need to be to clean this up. So here we have 162 past due activities. We might have done all of these things. We might have prepared those August client reports. We might have changed that permission. We might have cut captain's check, but no one went in here and clicked on that action icon and chose to complete. So it's sitting here as if we never got to it. First of all, it's like a compliance nightmare because if you have an audit, your audit might be questioning why didn't you ever cut this check that they requested? And it's also just, people, we want to have everything in good working order, like I mentioned, and this just throws everything out of whack. I can't even emphasize how horrible it makes things. Because right now, I'm going to teach you how to complete this in bulk. or complete it individually because you know you did it. But as soon as I complete it, it's going to date and timestamp it today. Right, guys? So that's 2 years later almost to the date. So I cannot go and backstamp this. I can't say, wait, I'm going to complete it, but complete it August 15th, 2019. That's not possible. You cannot backstamp things. So as soon as I complete this, and let's just open Steve Rogers in a new tab. As soon as I complete it, it's going to date, time, and user stamp it and save it as a note right now. So maybe you can consider going into the activity and adding in a link note, just saying, you know, completing this activity in June 2021. However, it was done in August 2019. So you can consider doing something like that, like a manual note add, but still not as good as the real thing. Now I can go ahead and complete this and I can refresh Steve Rogers, and you're going to notice under latest notes that is there. So it is going to be documented there into the activity that, you know, we did complete this back in 2019, but we're completing it, you know, just from the machine wise in 2021, but still not as good as the real thing. So that's why I am a stickler for completing activities. You should be too. There is no reason at all in this world to add in activities if you're not going to be completing activities. So if you're not going to be completing activities, there's no reason to even make them, in my opinion. That's how serious I want everyone to take this. Just as a refresher, the link notes can kind of serve as a running dialogue to your activities. So as things progress, as things change, as there's an outcome from this activity, you can add it here as a link note, and it'll automatically date, time, and user stamp it and save it on the contact level and on the activity level as well. So we did have a lot of offices before that were just putting that, you know, date, time, and user stamp here inside of the description, but we created link notes so it automatically happens. It's a lot cleaner and a lot more compliant. So make sure today before you leave the office, you do check out your past due activities. If you don't feel comfortable doing it for everyone, do it for yourself at least. Make yourself look good. And if you do want to kind of just do a clean sweep, make sure the room is clean as we move forward. Just change it to everyone. Check off that top checkbox. Make sure everything is selected. And you can complete them all in bulk. So not the greatest situation to be in, but it allows us to move forward, right? We have to move forward. We need these to go away. So that way from this point forward, we can get in the habit of, oh, as soon as something happens, we complete it. So as soon as we have this onboarding meeting, we go ahead, we add our link note of the outcome, or maybe they rescheduled, whatever it is, put it in as a link note, and then complete it. So that way we don't have that situation come up again. Otherwise, we can go ahead and locate unused types as well in regards to cleaning up history. So when you choose to add in an activity, you click on the plus sign and add in an activity. You'll notice that category drop down is here. It's the same category drop down we just cleaned up for notes. And that's because when you complete an activity, it gets saved as a note. So we want that to be consistent. But you'll notice a new drop down menu here called type. And type is kind of like the medium of the activity. So is it a phone call? Is it a task? Is it a review? Is it an appointment? Is it a vacation day? You can go ahead and choose that here. And then once you know what type of activity it is, you can get to kind of the gist of it with the category. So if it is an appointment, is it an insurance appointment? Is it a relationship building appointment? If it's a task, what type of task is it? Is it a money movement task? Is it a trade request task? You can kind of get more specific there. But the idea is here now that we can clean up this type drop down as well. You know, we might not be using some of these anymore, so we can go ahead and delete them. So maybe we find that, you know, before we were doing a lot of, you know, internal meetings, but now instead we're marking them as Zoom meetings. So we can get rid of that. Or we see these ones here at the bottom that we don't see necessary anymore. We could delete them. And remember, you could always investigate further before you delete it by going to reports, going to this time activities by contact report, and choosing filter. But now you want to move the start date and the end date because you can look at the past and the future here. So maybe you want to look at, you know, the next 30 years or 30 years together, 10 years ago, 10 years forward. You could apply that filter with that start date and end date, and then just investigate the types. So we didn't like those ones at the bottom, final meeting and audit, Tabitha. We can apply that filter, see what comes up. We see nothing has came up in the future or the past, so we can delete those guys. We can go back to our name, manage your account, manage database lists, but this time we'll choose activity types and go to delete these ones here at the bottom. So that way our list is all nice and clean up. So if somebody finds, you know, why'd you delete that? You can always add it back, but kind of just make sure that there's a reason for it being there first. Next thing we'll talk about is going to be missing contact information. So like I said, we promise the functionality of the system, but we don't promise the integrity of your data. So if you're missing like a category here, you're missing phone numbers, you're missing important keywords, you need to dedicate the front end work to make sure that these are all accurate on the record. So that way your reports and your searches will be accurate as well. So maybe you want to search everyone who's missing a category because, you know, maybe you added a bunch of people last week and, you know, that field was missing for a lot and you just want to update them in bulk. You can always do bulk updates. So if we go to contacts on the left, we can do an advanced search. So I'll click on the advanced search tab here at the top, and then we'll run our search. So I want to do a contact level search to search for contact level data and search for that keyword here. But just as some homework, go through all of the fields that you can search by because there's a ton of things here. I'm just using category as like a default, but you can see all of the things you can search by. There's a ton of stuff, ton of helpful items. So we'll go ahead and choose category, and we will go ahead and pull up everyone who's missing a category. So we'll do is empty. I love the is empty search because it's great to know what information you are collecting, but it's even better to know what information you're missing. So the is empty search is your best friend because it's going to pull up everyone who is missing information. What a great thing to have. It's like having a bunch of, you know, resources to, or like maybe, you know, kind of feels like Christmas to me, where it's like Santa's little elves that go out there and find everything that's missing for me and bring it back so I can do something with it. And like I said, I'm doing contact category, but you can do more important things. I like cleaning up driver's license numbers. Driver's license number is a mandatory field on all of our account forms. So if I'm finding a pause in my, process because I have to go find a driver's license number for 20 people when I'm making their forms, then I can run a search for that. I can do an identification type search to search for the number. So this is searching for ID number. And I'll do is empty. So this is saying, pull me up everyone who has an ID number that is empty. And this is a massive list. So you might consider even narrowing this down to active clients as well. So that way you can focus on people that you are making account forms for regularly. We could isolate it to active clients who don't have an ID number, and then isolate it even further by category just to make it more digestible. Because if you're tasked to clean up 191 driver's license numbers, you might not be as motivated to do that. So if we break it down and say, okay, let's start with our active clients who are our top clients and clean that up first. Here's 50 records. That's a lot more doable. Whoever's tasked with doing this won't feel like it's an impossible thing to do. So the is empty search is there. I like this one here. Let's say we want to clean up all of these. What you can do is you could either go, so there's two kind of options here I'm going to give you. You could either go record by record, click into the record, go to the Know Your Client section, go to the area for the identifications. So you can go to Know Your Client, miscellaneous client information, all the way to identifications and add in their driver's license number here. You can do that one by one, or if you prefer, what you can do is push all of these contacts to an Excel sheet. And don't forget about this button here that says return to search. It is going to be there, or you can click next and go to the next one if you're doing it one by one. But if you want to push everything to Excel, what you can do is update the Excel sheet with all of those driver's license numbers and then send it back to us using a secure link because it's confidential information. And then we'll update your CRM with all of those driver's license numbers. So if this isn't a bad list, guys, you can consider just going record by record. But a lot of people in this situation would prefer to push to Excel and work out of that Excel sheet. So you might want to do that as well. So I'll show you that right now. This is kind of a 3-step process that we're talking about. Your first step is to create the Excel sheet. So if you click on your name in the top right-hand corner, you can go to manage your account. And if you go to your name, go to manage your account, you can go to custom export templates. Whenever you see export, just think Excel. So right now you're making a custom Excel sheet. So if you click new in the top right-hand corner, you can name it and choose the fields you want to see. So probably at the very least, you want to know who you're working with. So you want to know their name, and then you want to know that driver's license number information. So under personal information, you can check off these driver's license fields. So that way, this is what we'll push into the Excel sheet. So we'll just name this ID number update and save this. And then you can order it. So maybe you want to see the number first. This is ordering it left to right on the Excel sheet. Maybe you want to see the number, the state, and then the expiration and issue date like that. You can save it. This is the first step, is to make your Excel sheet. Make your custom export by going to manage your account and custom export templates. Now, your second step is to apply it to contacts. So we already have a search in mind of, showing those active AAA contacts that are missing their ID number. If this is a good list, I could go ahead and use it. So your second step is to apply it to contacts. If I want to apply it to these 50 records, I can check off that top checkbox, go to contact options, down to custom exports, and choose that export I just created. So I'm going to have to rerun this search really quick. Bear with me. I'll go quick. I'll do an ID identification as the type, number as the field, is empty, and do 2 ands. The first and will be that the status needs to be active and the category needs to be AAA. And the reason why I had to do this again is because I just created that list. So when I click on custom export, it won't be in action because kind of the page is old. So I have to rerun it here, bring up those 50 again, check off that top checkbox, go to contact options. And this is the second step now, applying it to contacts. I'm applying that custom export I made in step 1 to these 50. So I'll choose that one I just created. I think I called it ID number update, and run this custom export. It'll take these 50 records and those fields that I selected and push it to an Excel sheet. So that way within the Excel sheet, I can make the changes that I want to see and then send it back to us here at Redtail, and we'll make those changes for you. I'm going to share my sheet. It did come up in numbers. I need to change my default from numbers to Excel sheet for this. But nonetheless, here's the point. Bruce Wayne, I can see his ID number here, type it in, put his state, put the expiration, and then put the issue date, and then continue. So I can go and say, okay, I have Dwayne's right here. Here's his driver's license number, and kind of go through my list here within the Excel sheet and make those changes. So that way I'm not going record by record, going to know your client, going to miscellaneous client information, going to identification, clicking add, typing it in, hitting save, going to the next one. Instead, I can do all of it through the Excel sheet and then send this back. So since this is secure information, like I said, your third step is to customize the Excel sheet now, fill it in with those holes. And then once those holes are filled in, I personally like to just click on the question mark and submit a help ticket and just say, requesting secure link for Excel upload, something like that. So that way we can get that secure link right to you and you don't have to call in and wait on the phone. You could just submit a help ticket. We'll get that link to you. You can upload that link to us and then we'll update your database with all those changes. So really, really great stuff there. I love to do it that way just because I think it's faster and at least a little bit more enjoyable than the clicking. But that's going to be a first way to clean up data. Let's go back to our example we were initially starting with, which was saying, pull me up every contact category that is empty. And if we run this search, we have a ton of categories here that are missing. And maybe just for some, simplicity's sake, we just want to add them to a category that would fit, and we'll kind of adjust it as we need to later. You can do that in bulk. You can check that top checkbox, make sure everyone is selected. And then under contact actions, there's bulk actions. And just some more homework here, guys. Just go through and look at all of the things you can do in bulk, because there's a ton of things you can do in bulk that will make your life easier. And in this case, we're going to change the contact category in bulk. So those 153 that do not have a category anymore can have one if we find one that fits. Maybe we just want to mark them all to A or something like that. You can do that in bulk through the advanced search. And please do not hesitate if you're ever in the moment and you're like, I want to pull up this list or I want to clean up this field of data. Definitely just call our team in the moment at our support line. We could remote into your screen, your database, your computer, your contacts, and either demonstrate anything or help you pull up something specific or help strategize the best way to do something and help you out in the moment. So definitely do not feel like you're alone. We showed how to pull up driver's license numbers that are empty. Know that you also can pull up, tax IDs that are missing. This one's a really important one to have as well. So you can go ahead and pull up that tax ID is empty. And I would isolate it again to active clients just so the list is more accurate. But you can quickly see here, if we're not using statuses correctly, if we're not using categories, it really makes it hard to have an accurate list here. Either this list will be completely inaccurate or it won't really be useful if we aren't going in and marking these statuses and categories and whatnot correctly. So everyone here is missing a tax ID number. I can either go record by record or consider that Excel option again here. All right, next thing that we'll do is show you how to kind of see contacts that have either slipped through the cracks or they have slipped off the face of the earth and you kind of don't even need them as a top name in your database anymore. So first thing you want to do is go to reports on the left and go to one of our handy dandy reports we've added recently in the years. It's underneath contact reports and it's called no contact. So it's great to know Bruce came in yesterday for a meeting and Jenny's coming in next week for a meeting and we have a call with Tom today. But what about the opposite? What about those contacts we have not had communication with in a really long time? Well, that's exactly what this no contact report does. But let me preface here again. This report is completely dependent on good habits, good data. So if we're, for example, not completing activities, back to that thought that I was harping on, if we're not completing activities and we have 300 uncompleted activities, then this report won't be useful, right? It's not going to be accurate because this report is going off not having completed activities where we might have had an activity for someone last week, but no one went in and completed it. So it's kind of sitting there and will show up in this report because we didn't complete it. So this report is completely dependent on adding in notes, adding in activities, completing those activities in order for it to be accurate. So we'll go ahead and show it. So that way we kind of, if you're not doing these things, we're kind of pushing you a little bit further to start implementing those habits. But if you click filter in the top right, this is the most important thing you want to do in this report is adjust the filter. Right now, my result came back with 619 entries. And that is just showing contacts I haven't had contact with in 90 days. So you can imagine if I move this to 365, and I don't even know if I should because it's going to take a minute or two probably to return the results, it's going to be a lot higher than that number. So it's 515 here. So you want to consider what data you want to pull up. But for compliance purposes, try 365, right? If there a wealth management client, they need to see us at least once a year. So let's see who is in that compliance risk with this report. I can put that days in the past to 365, but most importantly, I can change that status to active. So it's not pulling up those businesses. It's not pulling up those inactive clients, those deceased clients. It's just pulling up active clients here and apply that filter. And this is a lot more digestible, but still extremely scary. I have 200 people in here that are active clients that I haven't talked to in a year. So this is something that you can use now, right? What you can do is maybe toggle this phone field and just smile and dial. Here's Willie's number. We can call up Willie. Hey, Willie, we haven't talked to you in a long time. How's it going? Add in the note recording that call we just had with him, and then he'll be removed from this list. Then you can go to the next one. Jake, hey, Jake, haven't talked to you in a while. Add in the note, he'll be off this list. So you can kind of smile and dial and kind of go through this list. Same thing here though, calling 200 people might be, the worst task ever. So if you want to filter it to just those AAA, really important clients first, just so you're working in digestible chunks here and you're not scaring whoever needs to make that phone call, you can do that. That's what the filters are for, is to work in digestible chunks and prioritize. So that's exactly what this report is for, to show you contacts you have not had any communication with, whether it's adding a note or completing activity in X amount of time. So you can either use this as kind of a compliance thing. You can clean up prospects as well. Maybe you want to pull up all the prospects you haven't talked to in a year and either consider moving them to inactive or a cold category. You could apply that filter and it would bring you up that list. So maybe you find some in here that you've never reached out to and you're like, you know what? Here's a lead. I'm going to call them now and see if they're interested. So you can use this for prospects, clients, all of that good stuff, just as long as you're using these fields correctly and as long as you're adding in notes and completing activities, you're going to get a good result back in this report. You can get really fancy and say, oh, show me everyone that has not had a phone call or has not had a client review. That's getting really fancy with these other options here at the bottom. If you're not using this at all yet, just keep it simple with what I showed. But maybe you are doing everything right and you're like, you know what, let's kind of see who we haven't had a client review with specifically. We can go ahead and choose that client review and apply that filter. And let me change that back from prospect to active and kind of work that way as well. So you do have that option if you're really using it correctly. Now, the last thing I want to kind of end with, I know I've been rambling on. I'm very passionate about cleaning up data, if you have not noticed. So I don't expect you to be the same, but I hope that I at least made it, made the juice or the squeeze worth the juice, right? If you put in and do the squeezing, then the juice of your reports and your searches and your in the moment stuff will all run a lot smoother. So the last thing I want to leave you with is something that we put together as a training team called a style guide. It's a nice start or a nice kind of way to nicely push things on your teammates if they are not implementing things, and you can talk until you're blue in the face and they still won't implement things. This style guide might really help you because it's a way to just uniformly push something consistent on the whole entire team, have it in writing, have everyone agree to it, and then there's no questions about what people should be doing. So if you click on the question mark in the top right hand corner, you can go to our Redtail help desk. You could either type style guide here in the search bar, and it will bring you back the result of the style guide. And I love this so much. I'll probably, I don't think it'll let me, but throw a thumbs up on there as well, but I need to sign in first. You could either get to it that way by typing it in, or you can go to the tile here that says Redtail CRM and go to the how to handle section. The how to handle section, if you have not seen this yet, is great as well. I might be biased because we're the ones creating all these, but this just takes common things that you guys go through and puts a nice little demonstration of it that we've seen work best in working with offices. So the style guide is here as well. This is going to kind of show how to set up those lists. Why do we have this in as a status? Why are we using lead and prospect when those could be considered the same thing? You can go ahead and create a style guide here that is going to visually demonstrate to everyone why we're using things, when to use them, and kind of the reason why. It kind of breaks it down into little shots in the beginning, but then you can also download this to a Word document or a PDF and start to build yours. So it is recommended to do this as a team, because the most important thing that we see with the CRM is buy-in. So if your whole team is part of this process, it really creates that buy-in, just like building a workflow, because they're part of it, their voice is heard, they got to put in their 2 cents, so it might help with that implementation. Don't forget that the database list sample is here as well. When you're building out your style guide, you can use this as a starting point, as a sample, so you can see the things that are in our trainer database defined with some samples. So that way you could kind of pick and choose what you want to put into your system. And we do have an entire video on this as well. But I do want to leave that with you, the style guide. And then, like I said, reach out to us in the moment as questions come up.
Thanks so much for joining us today for this particular session. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give us a call at 800-206-5030, option 3 for support, or just shoot us an email over to support@redtailtechnology.com. Thanks a lot and have a great day.